Hey guys, so today we've got a few things to do. A couple of them will be pretty satisfying, I think. The first thing is to clean up this Mediterranean herb garden. Now, it's looking good kind of from this angle, and that's always the problem for me because when it needs to be cut back is when it's starting to look its best. And so I don't want to do it. But especially with the lavender, it's starting to get woody in the center. We had a lot of rain, so you can see it's kind of laying it over. And if you let it get too woody too far up the plant, then cutting it back is going to be difficult and it might not survive that. I have a video of when I cut this back, I think last year around this time, and I go into on Next Level Gardening, and I go into the details of how to prune these things. So if you want to know the details, I'll leave a link in the video description. So I'm going to be cutting these all back. I don't know the time here. It's looking really nice. I might not touch it yet, but the oregano, the lavender, rosemary is looking okay. We'll see when we get back in there. Some of the sage is blooming. I might leave that for a while. So mainly the lavenders and the oregano. And then I got to do something about these artichokes. They are way too big for this space. So I think what I'm going to do is harvest the ones that are harvestable and then cut them way back, and then at some point, probably not today, move them to another location. They are overshadowing a lot of the lavender that I wanted here on the front, and they're just too big for the space. So we're gonna move them. If I have time today after that, we've got a lot of weeding to do up here, a lot. At this time of year here, and maybe it's a bit later for you depending on where you are, you know, we've had the rains all winter and the weather's warming up, and now we've got lots and lots of weeds. I'm hoping the ground will still be soft. Oh, I've got to go for here. I'm hoping the ground will still be soft enough to dig these out. If not, we've got more rain coming tomorrow, so I'll let that come through and then try again after that. For cutting back the lavender, I usually use just Felco's, but there's a lot of it and it's big and I want to save time. So I think I'm going to be using a hedge trimmer. I just remembered it's not in the garage anymore. It's probably in the shed. A hedge trimmer is going to make a lot quicker work of it. I might not get it as precise, but honestly, lavender doesn't really care. Hoping this battery is good and charged. It's usually not. All right, so I'll get started on this and catch up with you after. All right, it's all done. So bare. It's barren, but it's clean. I left the fennel because it's blooming right now, and fennel blooms attract all kinds of great pollinators to your garden, so I'm leaving that. These three artichokes had not bloomed, so I left them, for now at least. I cut most of them off at the ground. This one was a new shoot, so I left it. It's a little wimpy right now. We'll see if it picks itself back up. It was kind of leaning against all the rest of them. The others I just chop back like this. They are perennial, so they will start to, just like this one did here, push out new growth. So I looked back at some garden tours from last year. I think I started my first one in May, and I had cut these back in March, and it was 2 months later, and they looked pretty good. They were starting to fill in, they were starting to bloom. So I only have to look at it like this for a short time before it starts to look like something good again. I need to hurry up and clean up though, because it looks like that rain's coming in a little bit early. It's the next day. It rained all night. It's raining now. So I'm in the garage getting some stuff done. I'm actually doing an experiment this year. I've always been told, and I've passed that on, that tomatoes planted deep in the ground produce more than tomatoes planted at the normal depth, at the depth of the root ball. And we all know that tomato stems grow roots wherever they touch the ground. And so the theory is the deeper you plant it, the more stem is under the ground, the more roots, therefore more production. Where's the evidence of that though? I don't know. I'm going to try to get some. I'm going to grow the exact same tomatoes the normal way, how I do it, planted deep, and then shallow, right at the level of the root ball or wherever they came out of the container. And I'm going to plant a whole line of them, same variety, everything the same, and we'll see at the end of the season. I'll weigh the fruit that I get from each one, and we'll see what happens. So I actually started some tomatoes in self-watering trays. Typically, I will start them in the solo cups. So we'll see how these do compared to in the cups. So far, the ones in the cups look a little bit more robust, but I didn't have a lot of room here for a ton of cups, and I've got a lot of tomato plants. So I'm going to be potting them up out of these little grow trays into some bigger containers. I'd like to just plant them out in the garden right now. However, we are going to be getting down into the 30s again in April. Very weird to me. So I'm going to just pot them up, keep them in here for a little bit longer, and a lot of this other stuff that's taking up the space will be going out into the garden. I can plant it because it's more frost hardy. While I do this, opening new potting soil, I wanted to talk with you about something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. It's been an issue for me over my life, and I know right now a lot of people are dealing with it. In fact, I think it's becoming an epidemic, especially among young people. And definitely let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. As a kid, I had a hard time fitting in with the crowd. I was different. Fortunately, I had a really close group of friends that lived, next door, across the street. And I've kept those same friends for been over 40 years now. As you get older though, friends move away. They get busy with lives, jobs, a spouse, kids, responsibilities. So while that connection is still there with the kids that I grew up with, it's different. It's not as tangible as it once was. I got to the point several years ago of thinking that if something happened to my family, I wouldn't really have anybody. Felt like my friend-making ability has faded with age. And I feel like people my age, there's less people looking for friends. Like they've got their built-in group or whatever, and they're good. On top of that, I'm pretty introverted, which people always, on YouTube at least, have a hard time believing, since here I am in front of thousands and thousands of people. But it's different. And I think a lot of YouTubers I have talked to or know or whatever, they're all introverted as well. And I think it seems that we're not because, like I said, we're in front of thousands of people. But really, right now, I'm alone in my garage with my camera. So yes, I am introverted around people I don't know. If you were to talk to my close friends and my family, they would probably say I'm actually over extroverted. But for all intents and purposes, that's not me. When I reached the age of 40, life I hadn't achieved the goals that I wanted to achieve by 40, that's for sure. And I was feeling really alone, had an ever decreasing social life. I was pretty low at one point. I remember being on a walk and I was feeling isolated, and I was crossing the street and some car stopped for me, of course. But for me, I was like, oh, okay, I am here. Does that make any sense at all? It doesn't really looking back on it, but it made sense to me at the time. Somebody knew I was there. Somebody saw me. So they stopped for me. I started my YouTube channel at 43, and if I'm being completely honest, one of the reasons I did that was I was looking for a connection. I wanted people to see me. Not in a self-aggrandizing way, but just feel like I had something to offer and that others would see that and appreciate that in me, and they would accept me for that. Growing up, I always wanted to be famous. And I don't necessarily think it was just to be a star. I think it was just because I didn't feel heard and seen. So maybe deep down, starting YouTube, I thought, well, this is a way I could get, YouTube famous and help others by doing what I love. I don't think I ever expected to make any real life friends, but just having a large following meant I was accepted, and then everything would be great. It would give me a sense of self-worth. I remember every big milestone: 1,000 subscribers, 10,000 subscribers, 100,000 subscribers, and now 1,000,000 subscribers. And I remember thinking every time, at that next level, that next amount of subscribers, I will feel differently. I will feel like I finally have what I always wanted. And each milestone would come and go, and I never felt any different. Don't get me wrong, I am grateful for each and every one of you. You've changed my life in such a meaningful way. But there's still a disconnect, and I think just that's social media. I will say this channel versus Next Level Gardening, it does feel a little bit different. I've said many, many times that this feels like a friend group, and I've actually made some real friends through YouTube that I've either met in person or I will be meeting in person. Chad, Down Home Backyard Gardening, who we're doing the tomato challenge with. He's someone who is now a friend off of social media. And I do love the interaction that I have with you guys. It's something I would never change. I never regret doing any of this. And while this channel feels like a friendship with thousands of people, I'm looking for a way to hopefully be able to deepen that with you. But I think young people, especially nowadays, are seeking validation on social media. And at the same time, though, we have an epidemic of loneliness out there. When we're more connected than ever, we're lonelier. And that's why I wanted to do this video. I saw a statistic that 1 in 5 people are lonely. That's a lot of people. I actually hear from many of you in the comments who are lonely. And this channel has become a place where you can come and feel not so lonely, whether it's just watching, my family and I, or interacting in the comments. And ultimately, that's one of the reasons that we keep doing this. I mean, it's great feeling that I'm giving that to some of you, but I would like to find a way to do it more. The number one way to combat loneliness is to just get out there with real living human beings and interact. It's especially easier if you share something in common with them. I'm going to give you, hopefully, an encouraging story, and your story or the way you go about it might be completely different. when we moved down here, we left an area where, especially I, left a place that I had been since birth. And therefore, we left a lot of connections behind. Now, some of those friends moved away before we did, and for others, kind of life gets in the way and you don't see each other as often as you used to. But coming down here, we were, other than my sister and brother in law, we were completely alone. At Noah's school, it was hard to make friends because you don't interact with parents as much in high school as you do in elementary school. And the school Noah goes to, it goes from preschool all the way through high school. And so coming in high school, these people had been with all these other parents like their whole kids' educational life. And so there were bonds there. And this school actually goes back further where it's generational, where people who have kids at this school now went to this school and they all knew each other then. So they were childhood friends. So it made it very difficult to kind of peck your way in. So those old feelings of loneliness started to reemerge. Now, I will say it's not everybody else's fault and have nothing to do with us. Like I said, Emilie and I are introverted, so that doesn't make it any easier. My worst fear is coming off aloof or unfriendly or stuck up because of my introverted ways. So we do have to accept some of the responsibility, but because of my ADHD, my brain started catastrophizing everything because that's what it does. And so I've just pictured myself old, alone, forever. I just felt like we would never make friends, especially close friends, at this stage in life. We started going to church down here after we arrived down here. But being our introverted selves, at the end of church, when it's over, we put our heads down and head out the back door, speaking to as few people as possible. Not really a great way to make friends. Now, I will say this is the friendliest church I think that I've ever been to in my whole life, but we didn't help that process. But even if we weren't introverts, it's hard when you are in a big group and it's a quick passing handshake, hello, whatever. It's still hard to make friends that way. So about a year after starting there, the church issued a challenge. They had life groups going on there, smaller groups that get together in people's homes throughout the week. And they issued a challenge saying, if you haven't tried one of these, try it for 6 weeks and see how it goes. And we talked about it. And man, we were so not wanting to do it, just getting ourselves out of our comfort zone, being in a situation where there's less people, so you have to really talk. So we looked at the little menu they had because there was quite a few groups, and we looked for one close to our house with people our age. So against our introverted brains telling us this was a highly dangerous situation, we joined a group that was near our house, had people in it the same age as us. And now it's 6 months later, not 6 weeks later, and Emilie and I can both say we have not felt this connected, maybe ever, but certainly within the last 20 years of our lives. I remember after one of the meetings one night, we were getting into the car and we looked at each other and we said, we've got friends. A new group of friends, same stage in life, going through the same things. It's really amazing. I'm so glad that we didn't listen to ourselves and did it anyway. So I've got some takeaways from this experience that no matter how you want to do it, I think these takeaways all are appropriate to use. Number one, you got to get out of your comfort zone. Relationships are not going to come to you. They just aren't. So take small steps. That's number two. Take small steps. Get on a Facebook group. Go on Meetup. Facebook would have to be something where it was associated with a local get-together type group, not just a gardening group that's strictly online. I would also say look for one that is associated with your passion, something you love to do, because it's going to make it a lot easier to talk to people who you have something in common with. Don't join a hiking group if you hate hiking. Number 3, I would say it needs to be a group that gets together as often as possible, preferably weekly. If you get together monthly, you meet, and then in the next 4 weeks, those connections disappear a little bit and then come back. And they're not as dynamic ongoing. It would probably work eventually if you stuck with it and really put yourself out there, but I don't think it's going to be as easy. Number 4, for me, the smaller the group, the better. Just like this whole church versus a small group. If you're introverted like me, you tend to gravitate toward larger groups because you can fade into the background. Whereas in a smaller group, there's not as many people there to talk. So you've either got to talk or listen well. There's more of a chance you're going to be one-on-one with somebody. Number 5, you got to talk to people that you're meeting in these groups. Ask them how long they've been doing the thing that you love to do that you're in this group together about. Ask them about their lives, kids, line of work, whatever continues the conversation. People love to be asked questions about themselves. So if you can just ask questions, you don't even need to talk that much. Just come with a list of questions. Not on paper, that'd be weird. And number 6, make plans with someone to get together outside of the group. This is going to strengthen the bond between the two of you, or maybe more people. When my mom moved down here to get closer to my sister and I, she left a pretty good social life back home, friends and neighbors. When she got here, it hit her very hard. Fortunately, she moved into a 55 and older community, most of it 65, 75 and older. But her peers were there and they had activities. And so she was doing things like walking with people and going to game night. And it helped her to establish new friendships by doing those things with other people. And then it was within a fun activity where everyone could have fun and get to know each other better. Emilie's parents, they actually moved a couple years before my mom to the same area. And so they've been out doing the same thing. And so I'm really proud of them for being able to do that, showing me that it can be done, showing you that it can be done, no matter what age you are. All of this is to say, you don't have to be lonely. I think it's a choice to be lonely. And I know I would have hated hearing that a few years ago, even a year ago. But I really think that's the case. I know if we could do it, you can do it. Take these steps that I just outlined and just give them a try. What do you have to lose? Nothing. And you have deep, tangible friendships to gain. Do one more thing for me. If you follow these steps, let me know in the comments when they work for you. And also, when you make new friends, tell them about us. So in the last video, there was a very anticlimactic end to Emilie making stuffed artichokes. It was a ridiculous recipe. So she saved the stuffing part, she got mushrooms, and last night she made them as part of dinner, and they were good. So for those of you who are left hanging, want to be in it. I don't want to be in it. Start.
I'm gonna keep that in. It's good. I'm still not a huge fan of the texture of mushrooms, but
Easier than the artichoke.
it's got a good flavor. Good job.
Thank you.